I guess. Good morning. Oh my God, we made it. Is that too loud? Good morning. Do you guys know where you are?
MidCamp.
We are at MidCamp, which is a celebration of all things Drupal right here in the Midwest. Because the Midwest, it's not just the heart of America, it's the heart of technology. That's right. I wrote that. Welcome to MidCamp. This is the first ever MidCamp, and we are so glad to have you all. Who traveled? Oh my goodness. That guy's from Texas. I know there's someone from New York. Those aren't the Midwest, but we welcome you.
Midwestern Denmark.
Midwestern Denmark? We'll take you. So yesterday was a training day. Did anybody go? Is anybody smarter because of it? Is anyone going to come back for that? Go ahead and applaud for training. That was exciting. So MidCamp, like all Drupal camps, it takes a lot of work to coordinate. Has anyone ever coordinated a Drupal camp before? Whoa, that's incredible. So first, I would like to recognize Miss Andrea Sober. She is a very Midwest girl with a very Drupal-y dream. To start this, it is because of her that we're all here together, and we all get to hug, we all get to learn, we all get to laugh, we all get to fight. So thank you, Andrea. Bigger round of applause for that girl. And hey, all you MidCamp coordinators like me, go ahead, stand up. Let's applaud them. Another thing a Drupal camp can't live without, like MidCamp, are sponsors. They give us money so we can buy you lunch and give you this space. Who wants to learn about them? All right, let's do it. Let me know if you can't hear me. I have a really loud voice. Let's talk about some gold sponsors.
Okay.
Gold, 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 gold. All right. Thank you. See, Andrea's the best. That's never going to work. All right, great. Here we go. We're going to do that. All right. Gold, gold, gold. First, we have Breakthrough Technologies. Breakthrough Technologies is a Chicago-based custom software development shop with deep experience in the Drupal development community. In addition to building and deploying websites to a wide variety of industries and markets, Breakthrough's specialty is creating custom content products, workflow solutions, and sites that integrate content management with mobile applications. Let's give it up for Breakthrough. Hey, Duo. Duo is Chicago-based. Let's give it up for them. A little clappy clap. Look at that. Duo. Duo expertly and efficiently creates custom Drupal solutions. With 15 years of experience, our team of experts designs, develops, and partners with our clients to reach their digital goals. We're also looking for a Drupal architect or senior developer to add to our awesome team. Duo! Oh, hey, it's ProMet Source. This is where I work. ProMet Source. Since 2003, Chicago-based ProMet Source has been developing complex web applications that empower mission-critical functions. With a focus on Drupal, ProMet offers web and mobile development, seamless web integrations, 24/7 support, and more. Delivered by the coolest web geeks this side of the Mississippi. I wrote that. Palantir. Oh wait, nobody applied for ProMet. Oh, it's Palantir, you guys. Don't go to Palantir.com. That's wrong. All right, Palantir.net is a Chicago-based firm that creates engaging online experiences for clients who value accessible, sustainable, human-centered approaches to strategy, design, and development. Palantir has a long history of supporting the Midwest Drupal community and is proud to be a sponsor of MidCamp. We are going through this. You can hire me for a voiceover later. Training. Hey, remember that yesterday? You can thank Pantheon. Pantheon is a professional website platform. Top developers, marketers, and IT pros used to build, launch, and run all their Drupal and WordPress sites. Pantheon powers over 55,000 sites, including Intel, Cisco, Arizona State University, and the United Nations. Let's yeah. All right, my favorite kind of sponsor is that which sponsors coffee. Thank you, Blue Spark. Hey, that's what Blue Spark does. Something like that. Blue Spark is a strategic creative development agency with a focus on the open source Drupal CMS platform. There's a theme here. Merging thoughtful user experiences and beautiful interface designs, they design and build Drupal sites and applications that people love to use. Okay, thank you, Blue Spark. Oh, we only have one more. Lunch. Oh my God. I love lunch. Okay, thank you to the Center for Realtor Technology. The Center for Realtor Technology is a technology exploration and think tank group with a mission to educate realtors on new and emerging technologies that will help them with their business. CRT strives to help realtors and associations learn how to responsibly use technology and maximize its potential to help them in their daily business. Hey, they didn't say Drupal once. So let's give it up for all of our sponsors. That was good. Feel free to call any and all of those folks. Hey, there's our hashtag. You like what you're seeing, you like what you're learning, you like who you're talking to, you, hashtag MidCamp. Dig that? Tweet it right now. All right. Oh, hey, this just in. There is going to be a DrupalCon Latino in Bogota, Colombia, right before Carnival in February 2015. Write that down. Get a mask. Go on down. Call it Drupal. Whatever. Hey, who wants to hang out with each other? There's an after party at Jimmy Green's tonight, 6 o'clock. There's the address. I'm going to be there. Andrew's going to be there. That guy back there that I've never met is probably going to be there. He's probably going to buy us all around. Thanks, gang. So please come out. lineup of speakers all day, and let me give you some insight about this keynote you're about to listen to. Drupal 8 will be all about the new. An exciting new feature set, a new underlying architecture, a new collaboration with the rest of the PHP world, a new release cycle, an emphasis on new web technologies, and above all, new opportunities for content strategists, site builders, developers, and the community. Who is ready for the new? Sounds like it. So, veteran Drupal developers Larry Krell Garfield and Jeff Eaton will take us through a tour not just of Drupal's new features, but Drupal's new philosophy, both for the code and the community. That's you. So let's learn a little bit about Larry. Larry Garfield has been building websites since he was a sophomore in high school, which is longer ago than he'd like to admit. As a freelancer, he worked mostly for Chicago area politicians before graduating to full-time consulting with Palantir.net. At Palantir, Larry is a senior architect and community lead, developing solutions for medium to large cultural and educational institutions. He also works to represent both Palantir and Drupal in the broader developer community. Jeff Eaton. Oh my God, there was music. I got excited. You couldn't hear that, could you? No, you don't get it. Sorry. So Jeff Eaton. So Jeff brings more than 2 decades of experience in publishing and CMS development. He's built e-commerce sites for florists and enterprise web systems for multinational corporations. At Lullabot, he's designed and implemented large-scale platforms for clients, including Sony BMG Music, Fast Company and Inc. Magazine, World Wrestling Entertainment, that's the WWE, MSNBC, Verizon Wireless, Harvard University, and more. Today, he's the host of the Insert Content Here Content Strategy podcast, and he's the co-author of the first edition of O'Reilly Media's Using Drupal. So, since we're all done with me talking, and you're all ready to hear about the new Drupal 8 and experience MidCamp at its best, let's give a warm welcome to Krell and Eaton.
We're going to be talking about Drupal, the future, and you. Yeah, you right there.
Every single one of you individually
Yes.
will have a moment in this presentation.
My name is Larry Garfield, or Krell, as you just heard. I'm senior architect with Palantir.net. For Drupal 8, I was the Web Services Initiative Lead, which means you can blame me for about 1/3 of what we're about to talk about. I'm the Drupal representative to the Framework Interoperability Group. It's kind of the United Nations of the PHP world, which you can interpret all the good and bad implications that come with that. They're all accurate. Advisor to the Drupal Association and general purpose lovable pedant.
I, in fact, am Eaton. You may have heard that as well. I'm a digital strategist with Lullabot. I've been in the Drupal community for,
8 years?
wow, 8 years? Yeah, something like that. Possibly.
You might be at 9.
Yeah, I might be at 9.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, let's just.
It's been a while.
Yeah, so yes, I was one of the co-authors of the first edition of Using Drupal with O'Reilly and Associates. I host a content strategy podcast.
It's good, listen to it.
I'm also a member of the Drupal.org content working group, so if you see content on Drupal.org, hopefully we are helping make that better. And I'm a general rabble-rouser in the world of content strategy and content modeling and things that start with the word content in general.
So does that include content management systems?
It does, in fact.
Really does.
Yes.
We should talk about that.
It's topical.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's being updated in real time, but there is a website, eatonandkrellarguing.com. Yes, that usually reflects at any given moment whether we are arguing. So we'll see how this session goes.
You have to like
Unless
do
you're
it when you're
tweeting it,
sleeping.
I don't think it's going to actually do
Oh, yeah, that's right. It usually tracks Twitter, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
anything. Should we live tweet this?
Yes. Hashtag MidCamp. So, we have a confession to make, Jeff.
Yeah. From the future?
Yes. And we've actually come back from the future to share knowledge and information with all of these people. But this is very important. In fact, we're on a mission from Dries.
Say what you will about PHP, it's an aesthetic.
Can you guys hold the mic?
We'll talk loud.
Like this?
Yes.
One more
Make
time.
sure it didn't happen.
Anyway,
There. So,
the future that we're talking about.
Drupal 8, the wonderful, magical, fantastic object-filled future.
Well, don't tell it too much. So why are we doing this? I mean, we've got Drupal 7 now, don't we?
Well, who here uses Drupal 7? Who here uses Drupal 6? I'm so sorry. There's a support group.
Converting it to 7.
Yes. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Is anybody here using Drupal 5? God bless you. So, we've had Drupal 7 for quite a few years now, and I would go so far as to say that it's mature.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not euphemistic. I mean, like it's a good thing. 2% of the web at this point currently runs on Drupal, which is pretty staggering when you think how big the web is. And Drupal also runs a disproportionate number of large websites, highly recognizable, like, top 1,000 websites. So even though 2% is a large number, it is the percentage of, say, really recognizable websites that are running on Drupal is even higher. In certain industries like education, that number is as high as, I think, 26%. So Drupal,
Publishing's another one.
Publishing, yes. Drupal actually has a pretty significant footprint at this point. DrupalCon, has anybody here ever been to DrupalCon? It's freaking enormous at this point. We've got a really, really big conference. We do it regularly. We have all these camps. When I first started in the Drupal community, this room is larger than what DrupalCon was.
Like, this room is DrupalCon Sunnyvale, which is where we met.
Right. I mean, that level of growth in the Drupal community has been really, really amazing. And it's been sustained over a pretty long stretch. It wasn't just, a particular flashy release that attracted a bunch of people to it. It's long-term growth. And in addition, the actual open source community that builds the Drupal software itself is one of the largest and most engaged in the open source world. I think, wow, if you take Contrib into account, all the modules and themes and stuff like that, there's something like 25,000 people who have contributed code, and I think that includes patches, right?
Yeah,
code and patches to either the Drupal core project or third-party modules that are hosted on Drupal.org. That is an order of magnitude larger than the Mozilla project or the Apache project, and Drupal makes fun of them at parties all the time. But it's easy to lose sight of that kind of scale when you're using it day in and day out. It's pretty significant. There's 20,000 new Drupal 7 sites that are going live every single month. And the number of actual contributors to Drupal 7, just like the core project, there's almost 1,000 people.
That's just people credited for writing patches.
Right. That's not including people who did testing, people who helped brainstorm solutions to problems. That's a huge, highly engaged community.
There's a problem here, though.
Yeah.
I waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, there is. It's, you know me. The problem is not sombreros, although we shouldn't discount their impact. The problem is that this is a picture of Dries Boytart, the founder of the Drupal project and the CTO of Acquia. Dries started the Drupal project in his dorm in college because because several people had to share an ISDN connection and they needed to post notes to each other. That was the genesis of Drupal. Drupal has grown a lot since then. But at its heart, it is a 13-year-old PHP4 /dot clone written by a Belgian college student.
Who remembers /dot?
Imagine the fact that that's currently running the White House's website.
There.
And I think, Drupal's been around for a while. It's proven itself. I mean, that's not a condemnation of it by any means. Lots of projects start from humble origins.
How many college kid projects have lasted for 13 years?
Exactly. Well, and maybe they're in grad school. The challenge is that a lot about the web has changed in that time. A lot about software development has changed in that time. As a community, we've learned a lot about how you actually build software at a large scale in that amount of time. And the way that Drupal is built, slow but steady progress, lots of people making additions when they need something or a client of theirs needs something, the steady evolutionary march of software that has served Drupal really well isn't necessarily as well suited to large-scale changes and architectural updates to keep Drupal ready for, I can't believe I'm going to say this, the next 13 years. Has anybody noticed mobile phones being used recently? This is usually one of my, talking points, but the rise of smartphones, mobile technology, tablets, basically non-desktop computers that become a primary part of how people experience the internet has skyrocketed recently. One of the really sobering things is that the first generation iPhone, which really shifted a lot of expectations around how the web is experienced on a handheld or mobile device, was released just as Drupal 7 was being finished. We've gone through how many generations of iPhones, the rise of Android devices as a dominant force, generational cycles of stuff, the rise of tablets in the time that Drupal 7 was just maturing. There's a lot of change that's happened there in what we can expect from the web. The idea that a website is a thing in and of itself rather than something that has to live on lots of different devices. That your content is something that you manage that gets splattered to an HTML page rather than something that might be typed to a mobile application or consumed by someone else's website and reused. A lot of that stuff is changing.
But, Jeff, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I mean, we're Drupal.
What's there?
I mean, this is a problem. This is a challenge.
We've got a big blue face.
But we can fix this.
I think that kitten is Larry.
I think I'll take that as a compliment.
Dude.
Yeah, this is not a surprise to anybody. A lot of people saw this coming. As Drupal 7 being finished, we're saying, boy, there's this thing that's on the horizon we are so not ready for. So we set out 3-4 years ago, something like that, with this mission. Drupal needs to evolve from a first-class web CMS to a first-class REST server that includes a first-class CMS. We need to take it to the next level up. This is the actual written mission statement for the initiative that I was running for Drupal 8. We need to reimagine what it means to be the Drupal software, because that's what it's going to take to handle mobile, to handle APIs, to handle all these different things that 13 years ago we didn't think about. And that is Drupal 8.
Drupal 8 is an excited and intimidating looking baby.
Drupal 8 is really a new generation of PHP framework CMS thing. We haven't quite solved that part yet. But it's a new generation of stuff, trust me.
It's still a framework-cation.
It's still a framework-cation, but it's a new generation of framework-cation. Indeed. Drupal 7 was built on PHP 4. It was architecturally a PHP 4 system. By the way, PHP 4 is a language that no longer exists. That's okay though, because Drupal 8 is built on Drupal 5.4. It is a new language. New, modern, powerful language. Drupal 7 had the assumption baked in. Everything is a page. Every time someone hits Drupal through a web browser, it's going to come back as a page. That's not the web. The web is just responses. The web is talking to other servers, talking to mobile phones, talking to browsers on mobile devices or desktops or television sets. Who has a browser on their television?
Who uses the browser?
Whose website can handle that? Yeah. Drupal 8, we go a level down. Everything is a response. We're just dealing with the web itself natively. It's a much more robust architecture. Drupal 7 was pretty much entirely built by Drupal people. Now, Drupal people are smart people, right? Right? Drupal people?
Most of them.
Yeah.
As a rule.
Generally speaking.
It's crowdsourced.
Yeah. But what if we could crowdsource from even more people?
Tell me more.
Drupal 8 has embraced code and development tools and practices from other development communities. Tons of the code in Drupal 8 written by not Drupal. And that's a good thing.
We don't have to maintain it.
We don't have to maintain it. Exactly. Drupal 7. Who has built a site using Drupal 7 and nothing else?
Angie.
Angie. That's about it. Drupal 8. You can build real-world production sites with nothing but Drupal core on day one. Yay!
Now, mind you, they'll still have the stock theme.
So, Jeff, tell us just how cool Drupal 8 is for site builders.
Yeah, it's so. In the Drupal world, we've got sort of this conceptual divide. There's people who code and write new modules and stuff like that, and there's and there's site builders, people who assemble existing Drupal components into new websites. Despite a lot of my history in writing crazy modules and working on core stuff, a lot of my work is actually planning site build-outs rather than writing lots of new code. So I have a soft spot in my heart for the people who spend a lot of their time in this space. And Drupal 8 actually brings a lot of amazing stuff to the table. Larry mentioned being able to build real sites with Drupal core. How many people here have ever used fields or content types? Right? Yeah? Okay. And Drupal has had that concept for quite a long time. It's been one of the things that really has separated it from the pack of other open source CMSs to the point where in the WordPress and Joomla world, there are people who will refer to making CCKs for other systems.
We are so beyond that.
Oh, yes. Yes. Drupal 7 rolled that functionality, the ability to add custom fields to your content types, into core, so you didn't even have to use the CCK module to do that. Well, Drupal 8 expands the vocabulary that you have to work with, the number of different kinds of fields that you can click onto those content types. One of them, the one I'm most excited about, is entity references. The ability
sites.
Oh yes. The ability to have one content type where an implicit part of its information is a relationship to another piece of content, that is baked into Drupal core now. You no longer have to go around and figure out which one of 3 different reference or references or whatever modules to use. It's just there, which is fantastic. Have you ever needed dates? I mean,
nice.
Yeah, I'm imagining the people who built, say, a website for a conference or a camp.
Why would they need to deal with date and time information?
Dates and times. There is now an actual date field in Drupal core. So if you wanted to say add a birthday field to the user profile, that is totally possible now. If you wanted to add when this event will happen, not just when I created the node to a particular type of content, you can do that. Link fields, the ability to put, say, a URL on a piece of content.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. We're dealing on the web. We need links.
Email, telephone numbers. I mean, these aren't earth-shaking, crazy things, but the fact that they're rolled into Drupal core, they're supported as a part of the basic Drupal download, means that the vocabulary that you have to describe and model your content right out of the box is way richer, and you can actually turn a copy of Drupal core into a reasonably complete website pretty quickly. It's shocking. Has anyone ever used Views?
Once or twice.
Once or twice? Yeah. It's, Views is another one of those tools that really took the Drupal world by storm when it came out, because it meant that to build custom lists of stuff, like, say, the front page, or a calendar, or a sidebar of related articles, or whatever, you didn't need to go find a developer who could write you a bunch of SQL queries and format it and not mess things up along the way. All you needed to do was click together the rules that selected the content and choose how you wanted it to display. And now I think everyone who has ever used Drupal has probably come into contact with Views at this point. If you aren't using Views, it's probably by choice and pure orneriness, which I can respect.
I have met those people. They are very, very stubborn.
They are indeed quite stubborn. But Views is now built into Drupal core. It is baked in. And here's what's even more impressive. Existing listing pages in Drupal core, like the content administration screen, or the front page, or the recent comments block, are no longer custom chunks of code that you must go in, disable, and then make a view to replace. Those are views that you can go in and edit, or override, or disable if you don't want them to be there. Drupal core not only includes views, it uses views out of the box. And if you've ever used something called Views Bulk Operations, lets you add little checkboxes, roll together your own administrative screens with a unpublish this stuff button or whatever, that functionality is also built into Drupal core now, so you can roll your own administrative screens on the back end. So, three big things that, at least from my perspective, Drupal 8 is just knocking out of the park. One is content modeling. The richer vocabulary of fields and relationships that are at our disposal. Content assembly, the ability to create our own custom pools of content using views that pull stuff together and display it how we need to. And then content delivery, the stuff that Larry was talking about. One of the other things that we get along the way with views in Drupal 8 is the ability to say, I'm going to define a view of content, but I don't want a page. I want a JSON feed at this URL. So I could point another web application at the view that I've built, and it could display it somewhere else. You can roll very simple web APIs with zero programming, just clicking it together and assembling it. It's really, really, I'm excited. I'm usually skeptical, but I'm pretty excited about that. I spend a lot of time in the content strategy world. If you're a content strategist, Drupal 8 speaks your language. The things that you have to figure out about a project, Drupal 8 maps to that very well.
Drupal 8 was custom built for him.
I'll run through this pretty quickly. Has anybody ever tried to deploy a Drupal site? I'm sorry. One of the biggest problems that we face with Drupal right now is that configuration, stuff like, I made a view, or, oh, I wish this node would go on the front page, or I put a block there. That stuff is mixed into the database alongside content, like the fact that a new article was posted, or a comment that someone added. That means that taking changes that you've made over here in a safe development environment and pushing them to the live environment where all the content is going often results in messy collisions, pain, and lots of late nights. The features module, some people might be familiar with it, is...
Who has lost hours of their life to features module that they desperately want back? There are more hands up than there are people in the room.
Features have emerged in the past several years as sort of a de facto deployment tool for Drupal because it's where a lot of the legwork of exporting settings into some sort of, file format happen. But it's really not a great match for a couple of reasons. It's not actually a deployment tool. It was really meant just to capture a bunch of settings in a single bundle so that when you rolled out a new site, you could automate some of that stuff. Using it as a deployment tool for existing websites is not really what it was meant for. And
It's our own fault.
That's true.
This is what happens when you misuse your tools.
Drupal 7, the underlying problem is that Drupal 7 has no standard way of telling configuration and setup information from content. There's no way for Drupal to sort of look at itself and say, this stuff I've got sitting in the database, is it settings that a developer has created in order to define a new section of the site, or is it a piece of content that an editor has made?
Or is it both?
Content figuration. That doesn't work. Drupal 8 features a completely new configuration API. It separates settings like, say, a view or a new taxonomy vocabulary or a content types definition from the content that actually populates those content types. It saves all of those settings, like the definition of your event node type, to files on disk rather than tables in the database, which means that you can easily import and export configuration and settings, like what you've been able to do with views for years, you can now do with content types, taxonomy vocabularies, I think blocks.
Pretty much anything that's not content is that.
Yes, it's really, really a big game changer. And modules can also include their own default configuration by exporting that stuff and just bundling it alongside the module, rather than writing a bunch of code to do the setup work in hand-coded scripts and stuff like that. It's a really, really big shift. That also means that the Drupal database itself is leaner and more content-y. The odds that anything stored in the database will be a random view configuration or whatever is way low. That means that you're a lot
There are a
safer.
third as many tables in the database.
Wow.
Let's have a look at this.
You can push content files. All the actual configuration stuff for a Drupal site is stored in folders, in files, and you can check them into source control. You can diff your site's settings. Yeah, and you can also deploy them without worrying about overwriting all of the content that's there on your live site. So
We're just adding a field here, messing around with our configuration, saving it, all right. And drag, drop.
That's it?
That's it.
You just deployed a Drupal site?
Well, there's one more step. You push a button.
No. That's fair.
We have a lot of buttons.
We do, yeah.
Yes.
It's a web button, too.
It is a web button, yeah. It's a button on a website.
Has anybody here ever tried to customize Drupal's installer?
No.
Yeah.
You brave souls.
Does anybody regret trying to customize Drupal's installer?
It's like the same hands.
Drupal 8's installer is a lot cleaner, a lot smoother visually. It's been streamlined, so there are fewer superfluous steps.
Wait. Is the first step here choosing a language?
Yes.
So I don't have to choose something in English first before I can switch to a language I actually understand?
9.
9 times, wow.
Yeah, the localization system and translations are now built into the installation process, so you could have the installer actually be in someone's native language. There are also a lot of steps that can be overridden in the installer. So if you're trying to build some sort of prefab website that someone can go and set up themselves, you can actually change those installation steps much easier, add custom themes to the installer so that it matches the look and feel of what you're trying to give them. Lots of really cool stuff. And if you're building some sort of prepackaged system that comes with a custom installation or a custom installer, you can entirely skip the choose what Drupal profile you want to use step and just fast track them to what you want. It's great stuff. Has anybody ever translated content with Drupal?
Tried.
Yes?
Tried.
There's a newer, beefier localization system translating stuff, importing and exporting localization stuff. The localization system in Drupal 8 now also ties in with the configuration management system.
So I can translate my configuration, and I don't need to sacrifice a goat to do it?
It's true. You will still need to sacrifice the goat. That's unrelated to the translation.
You can save goats that way.
It's true. The ability to translate portions of a given piece of content, like, for example, if you were to publish, say, an event website, you could choose the fact that the date field is not going to be localized, but the description field is. Stuff like that. It's neat.
One of the nice things about that, how many modules were there to handle localization in Drupal 7?
87.
Too many? 89? I don't even know. It's a lot.
High.
High? It was a bit more than that. How many modules are there here to handle localization and translation?
3.
That do more better than all of Contrib combined.
Has anyone here ever edited content on a Drupal website?
I never do that.
No.
Terrible habit.
That's what interns do. So, has anyone here ever tried to install a WYSIWYG editor in Drupal? Has anyone in here ever gotten into an argument about whether there should be a WYSIWYG editor in Drupal because it's such a pain to install a WYSIWYG editor in Drupal? Yeah. One of the really, really amazing things that is, I think, unprecedented in Drupal's history, when we first met in 2007 in DrupalCon Sunnyvale, one of Dries' statements in his keynote was, we really, really finally need to get a WYSIWYG editor in the Drupal core. So,
This was right when Drupal 5 was the new hotness.
well, we did it. And by we, I mean the people who actually wrote it, not me.
Royal we.
Yes. CK Editor, actually CK Editor 4, a new version of an editor that's been around for quite a long time, is now baked into Drupal 8, which is pretty amazing because one of the things that comes along with that is automatic configuration tie-ins. One of the problems with WYSIWYG configuration in previous versions of Drupal was you had to configure this WYSIWYG editor. It was usually, you had to edit a bunch of JavaScript files that, it came with to store its settings. Then you had to go and configure Drupal so that the input filters and stuff that Drupal used to cleanse text wouldn't conflict with what the WYSIWYG editor was trying to pass along. It was painful.
And 3 days later, when you're done with all of that, you can actually get something done.
And then images wouldn't show up. And God help you if somebody tried to paste in a table. In Drupal 8, the configuration system for the WYSIWYG editor is tied in with Drupal's filter system. You turn on a WYSIWYG editor button, the filters get updated. You change the filters to remove the ability to add certain types of markup, the button for it goes away. When you configure one, the other reflects it. There's no longer a disconnect that you have to manage manually between those, which is pretty amazing. It also comes out of the box with pretty sensible defaults for sane markup that generates, say, 6 of those little editor buttons instead of 98.
Did you say WYSIWYG and sane markup in the same sentence?
I know it's shocking. One of the cool things about CK Editor 4 is that the team has put a ton of work into generating clean semantic markup.
They knew Drupal wanted to use CK Editor, and they knew we are sticklers about our markup.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like all those other paragraphs?
No.
No, we wrap things in divs. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And that's also allowed us to streamline content editing forms considerably. This is a Drupal 7 edit form. If you've ever used this, uncustomized, it's not terrible, but it's not necessarily a pleasant experience for somebody who's trying to come in and write new content or edit existing stuff. This is the Drupal 8 edit screen. It's been rearranged. The WYSIWYG editor is baked in. We spend less screen space trying to explain fields, and we've just tried to make them work sensibly instead. There's a lot of metadata, like taxonomy, terms, and revision information that have been moved up to the side so that the layout is cleaner, people have access to more information, but it doesn't feel as cluttered, and there's way less scrolling. Feels good.
Feels good.
In-place editing, which...
Uh-oh.
It's there.
It is called Quick Edit.
Yes.
For a reason.
Basically, it's the ability to go to a particular page on the site, turn on quick editing, and be able to make changes to the pieces of content that are displayed on that page without going to any separate screens. You can click on the body, edit it right there, and hit save. While, as a content strategist, I have philosophical concerns about how this will play out in a multi-channel, multi-platform world where your content can live anywhere, it is still pretty darn handy when you just need to edit something on the front page.
Wait. Is that a cell phone?
Yes. have we mentioned that all of the edit screens, content editing forms, configuration screens are all responsive now?
So I can edit, I can correct a spelling error from my phone?
You can, without going like that.
What a concept.
That's actually, I think, American Sign Language for editing a Drupal node.
I thought the sign was much simpler.
I see what you did there. Not only is the front-end theme Bardic that ships with Drupal 8 responsive on the front end, the back end is also responsive. Things like tables that list content respond intelligently. It's pretty amazing. Also, who here has ever disabled the overlay module? Well, they did that for you too.
Yes.
Now there's no more overlay module. There is a toolbar, and all of the hacks and tweaks that were necessary to make overlay module work, the ability to pop up one page on top of another page, save it, intelligently refresh what was behind it so you didn't get things out of sync, that's been replaced with a new feature called the back button.
The purpose of overlay was always to say, I'm viewing a site, I want to go make an admin change, and then go back to where I was on the site.
Exactly. Well, now that's called the back to site button. It seems to work well.
We replaced 1,000 lines of JavaScript with a link.
Accessibility has also been improved considerably. I haven't been directly involved in this, but I've been watching it from afar, and it's pretty amazing. What is ARIA, other than an impressive song?
I actually don't know what it stands for. Does anyone actually know?
Accessible, rapid, something.
This is markup additions that make life easier for things that are not visual browsers. It's providing additional information for oral browsers, for text browsers, for people who need to use something other than a web browser they can see on a screen and use with fully functional hand and mouse.
It also allows things like keyboard control of edit screens, something other than just hitting tab repeatedly. And I like it too, but the idea that you could actually go to a particular field if you wanted to, pretty crazy stuff. In addition, Drupal has audio support, not like uploading audio, but the ability to have audio captions on edit fields. So that
Are you saying Drupal is trying to tell us something? Listen carefully.
Block layout, list 10 items, level 2. Close overlay button. Visit blank. Quick edit, list 3 items. Quick edit field image button. Quick edit field body button. Editing entity node 1, field body.
Damn.
And just in case you get confused, we've also got a new help system. How many people actually turned on the help module?
Wow, 3 is more than
How many people regretted turning on the help module when all it did was add 4 paragraphs of text at the top of every 4? We now have an in-place online help system using, I think it's the Tour module.
Tour module.
It basically uses jQuery-powered pop-ups that can highlight individual fields, take people through multiple steps of a particular task. Core comes with a bunch of useful tour information to explain certain complex forms, but it's also possible for new modules or, say, a site that you're building for a client that might not understand how the edit form works. You can also add your own tours to explain certain portions of the system.
And you don't need to know how to write PHP code to do it.
What? Heresy.
I know.
Basically, Drupal 8 is smoother, better, and more delicious for site builders.
Or building delicious.
Yes.
Right.
Well, no, but we do have home fields.
This is true.
Anyways, with that, I'm
So
gonna.
that sounds really great for people on the front end, but how do people actually build Drupal?
Oh.
Building sites with Drupal. Like, themers. Who here's a themer? All right. Who enjoys theming Drupal 7?
Better than 6.
Okay. Damning with faint praise. Let's start. Things that you do not need to think about. IE6. IE7. IE8. What's the slowly descending set of applause here?
Now people are getting nervous.
The next slide is not IE. I apologize. If you actually do need to deal with the client who's on an ancient system, there is a contrib module that mostly makes it work.
Is that just for the white screen?
No, it does not just throw a white screen. But you can actually focus on web browsers now when you're building your themes, as opposed to these things. What are we doing instead? HTML5, CSS3, top to bottom. Cool, right? Which also means responsive, top to bottom. All the core themes, all the core components, core tables, core everything is responsive out of the box. You open up a Drupal site, and everything is, starts moving around when you switch to smaller screen size. We're not doing an m-dot nonsense, it's just the same site. It's just a responsive theme. And the tools are there to make sure that your themes are responsive as well.
And that also includes administrative features like the toolbar.
Indeed. Let's have a look at that, in fact. So we've got this new toolbar that replaces the old toolbar that very few people actually liked. New one's a lot cleaner. Module's been renamed to extend. Just go figure. We have to change something on you. And when you resize the page, oh look, we're now in tablet size, and the toolbar is shrinking here, and oh, this is cool. And oh look, now this menu is going to open up on the side instead, so that I'm not going to have this wrapping list of links that are totally fuzzy and block everything. But everything is still there. So even if I'm on a phone or a tablet, I can still have access to this whole thing here. And when the site's large enough, it'll pop back up top. But if you prefer it on the side, you can have it on the side. It's your choice. Have fun.
A la carte administrative menus.
A la carte administrative menus, yes. And also, HTML5 Forms. HTML5 includes a lot of new form elements that provide richer information about the data being saved, like an email address or a telephone. So let's go ahead. We've specified this as a number field, or a telephone field. And so browsers that know how to do it can just say, all right, you get a numeric keypad. And that's what's going to make sense. And then we can even render that as a number, so you can just tap on it and call. And wait, Jeff, did we just edit a node on a phone?
We just edited a node on the phone, tapped that node's number on a phone, and made a phone call.
We just edited a node on a phone. That's awesome. How much JavaScript does it take to be this cool? If you're an anonymous user, if you're not actually logged in, not one single line of JavaScript is loaded.
But with Drupal, I thought we were supposed to load jQuery on every single page load just because.
That was the old Drupal, Jeff. We actually have tests in place to make sure we do not add any JavaScript by default for anonymous users. Why? Because when you're on a mobile phone, every byte you download and every CPU cycle you burn costs money, costs battery. Let's save that. Save the trees or something. I don't know. Obviously, some of the administrative stuff requires JavaScript, but it's a lot thinner, a lot cleaner. Half of it doesn't require jQuery, because we're using only modern browsers, and a lot of the stuff jQuery used to do is just baked into the browser now. jQuery is still there. If you want it, we've had jQuery for years, and we've had jQuery UI since Drupal 7, not that anyone used it, but it's there, and we are using it now. We've also now added backbone and underscore. These are not loaded unless you actually want to use them. But if you want to use them, they are there. Feel free. Have fun. These in particular were added to support all that fancy in-place editing stuff. So you can thank them for that, for giving you new libraries. Who writes templates? Who likes a PHP template? Mm-hmm. One person. Go away. In theory, PHP templates still exist, but no one actually uses it in Drupal 8. Instead, we use a new templating system called Twig. Twig is a third-party library. It's a custom template syntax. This is what the node template looked like in Drupal 7. It barely fits on the screen. So, all right, it's nice and simple. I have a variable and I print it, okay? And I, wait, what? What's render? If I'm rendering, why am I also printing? Why not that? And sometimes I have to put brackets in here too. I don't know why. This is grotesque is the word. Oh yeah, here's the brackets. What does this mean? This is grotesque. This is what the file looks like in Drupal 8. I want to print out a value. I put it in curly braces. I want to have display level logic. I put it in braces with %sign. I can do for reals logic here without having the developers yell at me. Morton, you're welcome.
And by the way, we are getting rid of that ID up there because nobody has ever used that.
Next version of the slide will have less code on it.
It wouldn't be a good idea to have entire CSS files targeting a single node ID? What?
That's crazy talk.
And people can yell at me for that.
So that's cool, right? Right? Cool?
Yes.
All right. Along the way, there's something else that we've managed to do.
There's always fun.
There's always fine. We could probably get down more than 25% less if you are interested in killing divs. If removing divs from markup makes you happy, talk to that man.
I would say we have a code sprint about that tomorrow.
Get there, kill divs. I'm not a themer. I'm a back-end developer. I write code. This is what I do. I also design things, but mostly I write code.
You do all this stuff.
That's it. You know I said waited 4 years to make that joke?
Oh, yes.
So, who finds gigantic arrays with no documentation and no autocompletion where the error message for any possible mistake is always the exact same error on the same line of the same file, 4 layers deep? Yeah. To be useful. Who likes working in that kind of API? Right. Drupal 7 was a PHP 4 based system, architecturally. It was based on PHP 4. Drupal 8 is a modern system based on a language that actually exists, called PHP 5.4. This is the current legacy stable version of PHP. It is faster, it has way more functionality, it's cleaner, and you can do a lot more robust stuff with it. We are using interfaces everywhere. Who here is a developer? Who writes PHP code? All right. Interfaces are your friend. Interfaces let you separate code out. Interfaces let you turn all errors into PHP telling you exactly what you did wrong before it gets to production. Yeah. Make the computer debug for you, that's what it's for. We've been able to separate out a lot of the parts of the system, which means it's possible to hack core without hacking core. What does that mean? It means you can take out large chunks of core and replace them with your own versions without editing a single core file.
So this would mean the kitten is half alive and half dead in a box.
It means you can kill your kitten and have it too.
That's the money tweet, everybody.
And it also means there's a lot fewer Drupalisms, a lot fewer things that are specific to Drupal in the code base. Why is that important?
Learning curve.
Learning curve. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of developers out there who know how to write in PHP and come to Drupal and go, they can actually use Drupal 8.
Mostly because we reinvented XML in deeply nested arrays, but that's another matter.
Well, yes. If you know Drupal 8, you can learn most other PHP systems out there. For those weird edge cases where Drupal is not actually the right tool, you are not stranded with nothing else but Drupal. This helps you. We've also put in an awful lot of code from this other project you might have heard of called Symfony. Who's heard of Symfony?
As I like to call it, small core.
You would. So Symfony is another open source project. It is a PHP framework, not an application, it's just a development framework that took this weird architectural approach of separating everything out into loosely coupled components. And that meant we could pull in bits and pieces of it and not have to write those pieces ourselves. I like the idea of not having to write code but still getting cool stuff out of it.
There's lots of chunks of Drupal core, like if you've ever used Drupal HTTP request, tell Drupal to go out and retrieve a page from somewhere else and, you know, parse the information.
The cyclomatic complexity of that is 41, which in English terms means if you were to write tests for it, and every test consists of one line, the heat death of the universe will happen before you finish writing tests for it. That's why the function no longer exists. Yeah, that function is gone, and it's been replaced by third-party code. We have replaced the concept of not invented here, of we have to write everything ourselves or otherwise it's bad, with proudly invented elsewhere. Because who doesn't love pie? Is there going to be pie at lunch? There's going to be pie for all of Drupal 8. This is especially important, I think. This is probably the biggest change in Drupal 8 is just the cultural shift of saying we are not our own little island writing everything ourselves. We are part of the larger PHP community. PHP has gone through an enormous renaissance in the last 3 or 4 years. In the same time we've been writing Drupal 8. Working together, collaborating, building a larger PHP ecosystem rather than a whole bunch of little fiefdoms. Drupal 8 has been a large part of that, has been one of the drivers of that change across the entire industry. I think it's cool. Don't you? So what have we pulled in? We have 9 different components out of the Symfony 2 framework. Most of that's down in the deep core parts of the system. So as module developers, you won't be seeing it directly, but it saved us tons of code under the hood. We're using the same routing system as Symfony CMF. They're a competitor to Drupal. We collaborated and built the same routing system that we're both using together. And Easy publishes too. So anyone who's worked on that part of the system is now an Easy Publish developer. Did I just say that?
I believe you did.
Oh, that's scary.
Invented.
That's even scarier. Zen Feed. You want to do RSS parsing? You want to do atom parsing? We've got a library for that from Zen, who modified their code base to make it easier for us to pull in, which replaced our own XML RSS parser that was written in around 2002, and it shows.
Who here worked with aggregator module? Yeah.
This is the standard library in the PHP world these days. Doctrine annotations. If you're defining a system for replacing info hooks, essentially, with something much more compact. The parser for that, pulled in from third-party code, contributed back to it, made it better. Guzzle. This is the library that replaced Drupal HTTP request with something awesome. This is the top HTTP client in the PHP world today.
It's also named Guzzle.
Which is also a pretty strong argument in its favor. A lot of our RDF parsing, we pushed out a separate library. Ascetic for handling CSS and JavaScript aggregation.
Wait, what? We don't have to write our own custom CSS and JavaScript aggregator and then discover how many browsers it breaks on?
No, because someone else already did it for us.
Nice.
Yeah. Twig, of course, is a third-party library used by a lot of other systems, which means if you learn to theme Drupal, you also will learn to theme those other systems. You want to know more about that one? Morton DK has a session next slot, and Ashley Saborski, where are you, has a session later in the day talking about Twig with Sculpin, which is another system that uses Twig. Learn one, you learn both. But that's, we don't just have third-party code. We have a lot of new systems ourselves. For example, who's used C Tools plugins?
I'm sorry.
Great idea, lousy implementation. So we put them in core and made it a good implementation. And replaced 20 different, incompatible, subtly different APIs in core with a single model. Learn once, apply everywhere. You learn how plugins work for blocks. You learn how they work for text formats. You learn how they work for the aggregator system. You learn how they work for naming another plugin. views, for all of views.
Things in views.
Yes.
They are objects. They are interface-driven. That makes them self-documenting. That means you don't need to guess what this obscenely long function name is. The code will tell you what you're missing. It's really nice. Entities. They actually have an API now, which is really cool. And you can unit test it. Who has attempted to use simple test before? Who has successfully used simple test before? Lots of hands just went down. Lots of hands just went down. Yeah. Drupal 7 is not a unit testable system. It's really not. That's why we brought in PHP unit. A lot of this rewriting we've done makes the system unit testable. Makes it possible to test just small little pieces of your code base without installing all of Drupal to run one function and then tear it all down again. Which means I, yesterday during a training, ran 4,606 tests in 53 seconds. You have no excuse to not write tests. The entire core system is now designed around REST, around the idea of we're serving HTTP. We are talking to the web. Only sometimes is that a page. HTML is just a special case of REST. People know what REST stands for? Representational state transfer? No. REST stands for, someone already designed this API, so I'm going to take a nap and just rely on their work.
I don't think that's the actual official definition, but it's pretty close.
I'm embellishing a little bit. Which means you can build apps that talk to Drupal. You do not need to write any code in Drupal to make this happen. You can hit any node with a little configuration and get it in JSON or XML. You want to make a view? All right, create this REST export view. It's whatever data would have been in that view, whatever content you ended up selecting, whatever nodes, whatever users. And you can now hit that from any web application, from any mobile app. This is a mobile app that's actually running for reals and talking to a Drupal site with no HTML going back and forth. Just JSON going back and forth. And we're reviewing the node, we're unpublishing it, we're editing it, we're saving it, done.
One of the other cool details, mentioned one of the plugin types that we were using from other systems is ways of serializing stuff. So the ability to expose those nodes and views in JSON or in HAL format or in XML. If you have some crazy format that you need to expose data to someone in, you can write a new serializer plugin, drop it in, and now your views can spit out all of your content in that crazy new format.
Kind of classy. So Jeff, this is awesome. But
it's fantastic.
These people have Drupal 7 sites. Some of them have Drupal 6 sites. Can we help these people? Can we help these poor people get into the future?
I like to think so.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I'm a skeptic by nature. I always like to note that anyone who tells you that there will not be significant effort going into upgrading from one major version of Drupal to the next is lying. It's a major change. It's a major migration. And that's not something that we're ever going to be able to escape, especially with all of the new changes that are going into place. They're great. They will make Drupal more future-proof. They will allow us to do lots of cool stuff much easier, but there's still going to be a transition.
That's kind of what it means to be a major version, isn't it?
Indeed. Yeah. One of the things that I think is most significant that can be done right now by anyone with an existing Drupal site is, and this feels like a no-brainer, but understand your own website as it currently exists. What type of content you have, how it's being used, and what you're using it to accomplish. If you have 75 different content types that are splattered all over the site, and
dear God, why?
I've seen worse. And only 12 of them are actually currently in use. You can do the work right now to start cleaning some of that stuff up. House cleaning that you do now to simplify and streamline how your existing Drupal 6 or 7 site is built will pay off when it comes time to actually migrate. Look at how you're collecting and pulling together content and assembling it for display. things that will be able to map to views in Drupal 8 if you're not already building them with views in like Drupal 6 or 7, knowing that you'll be able to migrate them in that way is a big boon. Any kind of design elements that you're using that recur throughout your site, start making note of them. Start trying to identify those things so that when you end up migrating to Drupal 8, you're thinking about specific components that you have to rebuild in twig templates or using custom views or something like that, rather than just trying to eat the elephant of moving our design over to Drupal 8.
Yeah, design elements, you're talking about thinking about how my content's going to look in different contexts.
Whoa.
Don't I have to have that for responsive design anyway?
Indeed. It's almost like modern web technology is forcing us to do this kind of stuff anyways. Understanding the editorial roles and workflows that you use on your existing site will be a big help, because Core now has more tools to build custom editorial screens, to build custom workflows for your editors. You'll be able to do a lot more, but the work that you invest up front of making sure that you understand who's doing what and what tools they need, that will pay off. And also, keep track of the stuff that you know your site has and uses and will continue to need that isn't in D8 and will need additional contrib modules.
Contrib does still exist.
Contrib still exists. You can build a lot of stuff out of the box with Core, but keeping those things in mind before you actually try to tackle a D8 site will help you a lot. And content. Migrating content from one version of Drupal to another. We've always, for many, many years, tried to do automatic upgrades. You install Drupal core, it will upgrade all of your old content to the new version in place. You are essentially just copying new Drupal files over and your database stays. That's really, really difficult to get right. The amount of code in existing versions of Drupal dedicated to just taking a node and walking it forward through all of the steps necessary for that to happen is kind of monumental. And the worst part is, if you started using third-party contributed modules, or you're actually relying on a lot of plugins to store your content or configuration, they may lag behind Drupal core. And using the in-place upgrade system will basically leave you stranded until absolutely every single piece is in place. Most large sites actually just rebuilt their entire website and migrated their content using the migrate module. And that's what's built into Drupal right now. The migrate module, not in the form of Buffalo, but in fact in the form of PHP, is in core, and it even allows you to do things like migrating Drupal 6 content straight to a Drupal 8 site.
Yeah, we're actually doing that one first.
Yeah, the Drupal 6 to 8 migration is being done before the Drupal 7 to 8 migration. The idea is, because your content is the stuff that's hardest to move over, and is least likely to change dramatically with a new version of Drupal, focus the energy on moving it forward. The cool stuff that we also gain with migrate being in core is that you could also, say, migrate from a WordPress site, or a Joomla site, or a bunch of flat files sitting in a directory. Anything with a database, you can point the migrate module at, and write some plugins that map that data to your content types. That being built into core is a huge boost. You can also attend Dave Reed's session, Future-Proofing Your Drupal 7 site.
Hi, Dave.
We will. Since he maintains, I think, roughly 482% of the contrib modules for Drupal, he's the perfect person to ask for advice.
So what do you think? Excited?
Yeah.
Are you excited? Well, too bad. It's not actually done yet. We're in alpha. When will Drupal 8 be released? People keep asking me. Drupal 8 will be released when these numbers hit 0. When we have no more critical bugs, critical tasks, and maybe some of the majors get down to below a certain level.
And you can all help.
Getting there.
We're all excited about that part.
Yeah.
I'm actually just trying to...
So, when will Drupal 8 be released? When those numbers go down low enough. How many people have been working on Drupal 8 so far? $1,984 as of last night.
That was a very good year.
I don't know, this is kind of Scary. It's kind of creepy.
Go down. We need
So
more.
you really want 1984 on a slide? Help get involved in core. Make this number not be scary. We are 16 away from 2,000 contributors. There's more than 16 people in this room. Let's make it happen. Come to the sprint tomorrow. What do we need? We need testers. We need people who try out the system, see if it actually works, find bugs, and report them so that we can fix them now where we still can. We need people writing documentation. If you are just trying to figure stuff out, either at the code level or the user level, write documentation as you go. You do not need to know how to code to do that. If you're a themer, you want to have fewer divs in your life, talk to this man tomorrow, and let's start killing divs. There are a lot of them that are still easy to kill off. We need people to do performance testing. We want to make Drupal 8 fast. We need people who know how to do performance testing and profiling. Get involved. We need developers to actually fix the stuff these other people find. We still care about accessibility. We need to make sure we don't inadvertently break the accessibility gains we've made. If this is something you specialize in, this is something you know about, this is something you have experience in, get involved, help out. Make Drupal 8 the most accessible CMS on the market. Your sysadmin. Our testbot infrastructure is held together with baling wire, duct tape, and prayer. Anything we can do to make that more stable or faster makes life easier and more efficient for everyone else on this list. Get involved. Host sprints. If you're a company, host space for people to show up and work on core. Because really, let's kick some ass. Let's kick some ass together.
Have we just spent an hour agreeing with each other?
I think so.
We'll have to fix that.
This is scary. We've got like 30 seconds for questions. Find something for us to disagree on, please.
Do we have Twitter for that?
No.
Questions?
I'm new to Drupal. Should I learn Drupal 7?
Are you building a site in the next 6 months?
Maybe.
Then you're going to want to use Drupal 7 for that. If you are looking more long-term, you just want to learn the one thing, jump straight to Drupal 8, help us get it out faster.
HTML email, is that going to be something supported in core Drupal 8, or is that?
I'm so sorry. Drupal 8 is capable of sending mail, and that mail can include HTML, but I'm pretty sure that's the extent of it. There's not anything particularly fancy that I believe D8 has added on that.
Mail system has been improved a bit, but it's still not.
It's still email.
Yeah.
One more question, and then we need to wrap it up because there are a lot more great sessions.
Which you're going to go to.
Are there any cool themes like Zen or Aurora that have moved into core?
There are no new base themes. I believe the plan is actually between Drupal 8.0 and 8.1, which will be a thing. We will be able to develop new core themes and add them, and actually evolve the system without breaking APIs. That's an entirely separate talk. But yeah, I expect there to be more core themes added post-release, and a lot of the popular contrib base themes are already in progress. Don't leave yet. Sit down.
Don't leave yet. Somebody lock that door. I'm kidding. Don't lock the door.
I think that's it for us.
Indeed. We'll have to go find somewhere else to argue.